I'm going to take you through some highlights of all 3 games from round 7 of the Biel Grandmaster Tournament, starting with Anish Giri against Pentala Harikrishna. Harikrishna played a really tricky line with black, and they reached this position after 14 moves. Clearly Harikrishna knew this backwards. This was all preparation. He played knight e4. Now, Giri has already given up a pawn with white and suddenly finds himself in big trouble. There's a threat simply to trap white's queen with knight c3, and knight c5 also isn't bad. Well, Giri defended against the first of these threats, bishop b2, preventing knight c3 and also hitting the rook. So this is very tactical. Now if the rook retreats, then suddenly white is doing very well with his excellent development, and you can see a pin might come here. There's all kinds of things happening. So this next sequence is forced, knight c5. Now the knight attacks the queen, of course. That queen can't escape. If it moves to b5, then a6 anyway, and the queen's gone. So queen takes knight, giving up the queen, and bishop takes rook. So, well, Giri was kind of shocked by this whole variation and, had to go in for this. But actually, it seems to me things have turned out very well. White has a rook and a bishop for the queen, and you can see that black's development is very poor. Also, the queenside pawns are shattered, and well, I quite like the 2 bishops as well, and I like the knight too. There's not a lot I don't like about white's position. The only thing is he hasn't got a queen, but still, this is much more difficult for black to play than white, in my opinion. So Harikrishna brought the knight to e4 to block out the bishop. So rook e1. Again, this next sequence is fairly forced. Black has to protect the knight with f5, and now f3. So the only way to avoid losing material is to play queen d5. So Giri took on e4, queen check, and the king moved to the side. So the exchange of pieces kind of helps black, but he needs to develop. So bishop b4 is a good move, hitting the rook at the same time. So then rook d1. So the rook hits the queen. Now the queen has to move. And now they actually just repeated the position, so the game ended in a draw. I was really surprised about that, really surprised. I thought Giri, even though he sacrificed his queen down, I thought he was going to play this position on. For example, well, I thought he'd try and get rid of this bishop with a3. Now, black has a choice. Perhaps bishop c3, perhaps bishop e7. I thought if bishop e7, this is actually, Harikrishna said this was his intention, then it would be fun to play knight a5. So this prevents the rook swinging over, because obviously knight c6. So black probably has to be brave and take that. Then knight c6 anyway. And now the rook is attacked, so the rook moves up. Well, Giri thought, well, in fact, both players thought that black should be okay here. And he probably is objectively. But still, I thought this might be fun to try. But okay, I'm not the one playing without a queen, so I can understand why Giri thought that he better play safely and just repeat the position to make a draw. Still, a very, very interesting game. Okay, moving on. We have the game between Alexander Motilev and Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. This is a wild Najdorf. And, well, let me see. Let's join the position around about... let me pick the position here. Motilev has given up a piece. He has 2 pawns for it, and the reason, of course, he's sacrificing is to expose black's king. So white has a serious attack here, and he continued with rook f1, checking the king. MVL blocked with the bishop, and now a check with the queen. Black has to block with the queen. And then Motilev brought the queen back to d3, and well, after that Maxime managed to consolidate. I think both players agreed afterwards that probably white should try to simplify with this move. Well, not even try to simplify, definitely simplify. So there's a forcing variation now. The king has to take. The queen comes back to d4, checking. And, of course, because of the skewer, black has to put the queen in the way. So white is a rook down, but this is an awkward check for black. If, let me see, if king e6, this actually loses. Check. Now the king has to keep hold of the queen. And now g4 is the winning move, because if king f6, then knight d7 check, forks king and queen. So king f5 is forced, and now a check with the knight, and it looks as though black has avoided all the trouble. But now the forcing moves continue, because knight f7 picks up the rook in the corner. It's still not over, because in fact white's knight is now trapped. So then knight takes g2, and both players thought that this position should end in a draw. Of course, the king can come back to take the knight, but white is going to come up to hassle the pawns, and well, the knight can also hassle white's pawns and also come back to defend. Objectively should be a draw. A long forcing sequence. In fact, Maxime had calculated all that. He saw that would probably be white's best. Instead, Motilev brought the queen back, but now black can consolidate. So after this, in fact, black's pieces are reasonably well coordinated, and you can see that black's king now has protection, and white's attack is dying down. In fact, in this position, after queen e6, probably objectively white should exchange queens. Should be winning with care for black, but in fact Motilev, short of time, kind of lost the overview in the position and tried to play for the attack still, but actually this counter-attack is too much, and well, here actually Motilev just blundered his rook and the game is over. So here the Russian resigned. So great victory for Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. Last game, Ho-Ifan against Radoslav Wojtaszek. Very interesting opening. It was a reverse Benoni, and you can see that Ho-Ifan has advanced on the queen side, and Wojtaszek has blocked this with the b-pawn. Now, of course, white could push on with c5. It's a protected pass pawn, but black has security here. The knight is a good blockader. But the Chinese player found a very creative solution. She sacrificed a piece with knight takes d4, and then bishop f4. The black's problem is that you can see there's a skewer, and of course the bishop can't interpose because the rook hangs on e8. So Wojtaszek had to block with the knight, and after knight takes d4, white with these two bishops and open file and the threatening, menacing knight, white has fantastic compensation. Wojtaszek decided to give some material back. He took here and then simply pushed on with his pawn. Now, it's not possible to take here straight away because you've got to watch out for this. So queen a4, good move, and rook b6. I mean, actually, Ho Ifan had many interesting continuations here. What she did was very sensible, probably very good for white. Let's just go on a few moves and reach the critical position. So white is a pawn up here, but this pawn on c3 is a bit annoying. The rook came back. Everything okay so far? And now here, both players felt that probably b5 was premature and white should play d5. It's still not that clear. I think if black gives up the exchange now, white still has a bit of work to do to win this position, but should be good for white. Instead, b5 played by Ho Ifan, and in fact this also turns out very well. Let's reach the critical moment. So this is slightly worrying. Obviously queen takes c2 can be met by rook takes b5, so this is an annoying counterplay. I should say that Ifan was short of time here, so very difficult position, very complicated to see your way through to winning when you're running short of time. But here probably she missed a good idea. Queen takes c2 was played, and actually Wojciech is over the worst here, and he managed to survive in the endgame. Let's go back to the position after 28, bishop d5. It's possible to win with this move, and then rook e8. And the idea is actually very simple. I mean, when you're short of time, it looks very scary to leave this pawn on c2. That I understand, so I can understand why Ifan didn't look for this. But it looks like it's winning for white. For example, after queen takes b5, very simple. White forces mate with queen a3, and obviously the king goes to the side and rook e8. And going back here, if g6, this doesn't solve black's back rank problems because queen a3 looks unpleasant for black. That's checkmate. And if g5, that's really the only move to keep black in the game, but actually this is an excellent move. Okay, you can see a computer finds these moves very easily. Rook e5 is a good move, and if bishop takes rook, then knight e7 check. Forks king and queen. And if, let's say, queen f3, still not over, but rook c5 is a good move, and basically white is going to scoop up this pawn, and it has a 2-pawn advantage, winning position. But absolutely not simple to see that idea. And well, to be honest, I'm only showing it because I thought that the winning ideas are quite nice. I'm certainly not showing it to somehow you know, point up the mistakes of Ho Ifan, who really is, you know, she's playing an excellent tournament. So the game ended in a draw. After 7 rounds, means with those results that Maxime Vachier-Lagrave now has a 1.5 lead over the rest of the field, and with 3 games to go, it's looking very good for him.